So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end, period Shiach, the prophet, we find in ourselves during the time of the restoration of the holy cities of the Messiah, and also regarding the level of the Gentiles and the organization of the kingdoms of this time. So then we are in line with the agenda pre-selected a long time ago. So let's evaluate what's going on as far as the kingdom of the East, China, and the kingdom of the South. Lots of plans of investments in the continent of Africa, the Southern Kingdom. But let me say a few words then regarding the relationship amongst these kingdoms. When we read Daniel, the 11th chapter, we find a specific relationship of the kingdom of the north and the kingdom of the south. There is no mentioning of the kingdom of the east making relationship with the kingdom of the south. We do understand primarily there is a relationship linking up the banks. It's very obvious. But as far as iron, visiting with iron, then we don't find the kingdom of the east. We find then later there is an exclusive chapter only for China, Baal and the dragon. This means China at the moment has a higher position, where then the dragon no longer deals with the Baalians. So let's try to understand what goes on. As far as we read in the scripture and gathering the information from the holy instructions, any kind of deal from China in Africa won't work. Let's try to understand why. The continent of Africa has a diversity of cultures, diversity of religions, and any kind of investment in the continent of Africa requires a fierce understanding of the market. China is not a fierce country. China is very pacifist. It's a very great country, but China is not fierce. So let's try to understand why the relationship then of China with South Africa, or then the entire continent of Africa, won't work. If China tries then to get the investment that they are projecting in Africa, the money is going to get stolen. 100% sure. The reason why, because we don't find the relationship of the 11th chapter related with a layer of those couple of kingdoms. You find a fierce kingdom of the north dealing with the fierce kingdom of the south. China then must remain protected. At any time, at any point, during this time, where then these understandings are becoming more popular and revealed, any position taken by China to get direct investments in Africa won't work. The money is going to get squandered and it's going to get stolen. So then we understand China then is the understanding in the spirit of the 11th chapter, related then with a couple of chapters later. We do understand there is a relation with north and south and east, as we understand per banking. There is a link, but direct relationship does not. And we are not speaking of the banking when we read the holy instructions. We only read then the understanding of iron dealing with iron would be then Kingdom of the North, fierce. Kingdom of the South, fierce. That's why then you find some skirmishes from both kingdoms. China is not part of it. The role of China at the moment is then receiving oil and gas in exchange for then the Kingdom of the North becoming then the manager of the Chinese government. So let's try to understand why. Because China has no longer the ability of dealing with the Balian system. The more time goes, the more you find people stealing, people not able to maintain their obligations. You find the Eurozone then nearly ruined. You find then North America in very big trouble. So the more time goes by, the worse it gets. So then imagine then when the United States, then the next 36 months, we understand the US monetary system is going to get ruined at some point if we don't do our homework. And those couple of scoundrels that were involved over there in Boston, they were caught very quickly. Quite honestly, my personal opinion, I would never imagine they would catch those scoundrels so fast. This means our government is very capable of tackling problems. And our taxation system is much further problematic than those couple of scoundrels. So let's understand then the fragility of the market. So then we understand China has many contracts with many countries around the world. As the economy deteriorates, they can understand what goes on with those contracts. So China has his ability, or its ability of understanding his position, speaking Mr. Xi, and then owning his position. Then the Kingdom of the North as fierce, being the manager of the Kingdom of the East. And then the Kingdom of the South, only the Northern Kingdom deals with it. There is a reason why then there is a leader of the BRIC, or BRICS. There is a reason. So let's understand this. There is an article on the China news related with the President Xi visits of Soviet Union, Tanzania, South Africa, and the Republic of Congo. The only relevant visit is from China and the Soviet Union. The others are bearing no relevancy. So then we are finding from the instructions the linear understanding of these countries and kingdoms. So then it's time for each to take his position and understand the way then the agenda is set. The dragon, then the kingdom of the east, must remain secluded. The kingdom of the north becomes then the manager. And then the Balian system has to deal with itself. There is no variation from it. Any kind of deviation from it is absolutely disastrous. Do you want an example? Daniel the prophet stated that during the time of the deceit, from 1009 to 2009, nations would try to come together, but they would not adhere to each other. you find Germany, for instance, is entangled. So let's understand why then Germany is requesting their gold from the United States and also France. We have an understanding then the Eurozone is going to get dismantled. There is no way to go forward with it. But most importantly is understanding the order of each role. Because if each of those kingdoms they begin to jump around, it's not going to work. It's a simple waste of time. That's why the Creator wisely has stated in His Word, related with those layers of understanding from the time of 1,000 years of the Messiah, then 1,000 years of Nahashtan, a short period of restoration, where then the cities of the Messiah simultaneously are being then related with the level of the Gentiles, and then comes the autumn feast. We have a space of time of roughly 20 years, very maximum, where then there is no other interpretation. You find the second chapter of Daniel, the whole statue, understanding then the Gentile level from many centuries ago. Then we find in the base of the statue related with the time of the seat, mostly, where we can gather most of our information. Understandably, the time of the iron and clay started after the dismantling of the Roman Empire. But then counting the time, we understand 1,000 years of the seat from 1009 to 2009, and the transitional point was the destruction of Jerusalem and the tomb. That was the marker point from the cities and then non-cities. True versus the seat. After 2009, then we've entered the schedule of the Creator. And He has stated the way He wants. So then when you read the rest of Daniel, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, give you then explanation of those areas related with the rest of the statue. You find then the breast of silver, then you find then bronze, you find then iron. And the 11th chapter gives us a layer of the base of the statue where iron does not mix with the clay. But then for a period of time, during the time of the seat, there were many nations that were iron. And many nations were clay. During this time, you find a new world order, because there were no cities. No cities of the Messiah for guidance. So those nations were coming together for an world order. But then ended in 2009. We are back on track on the scripture. And the 11th chapter gives you then precisely the time of the restoration only. And then gives you a couple of chapters later, where you find the Apocrypha, then the understanding of the Balians and the dragon. So without a shadow of a doubt, we find these very sure and very certain. So any person trying to jump from a kingdom to another on their very own, those times are gone. The jumping around and trying to make quick deals then the other, those were then given during the time of the seat and didn't work. But now we are back on schedule. So then the kingdom of the east, dragon, separated from the Balian system. Then there is the kingdom of the north, then managing the projects, and then providing gas and petroleum to China. And then the kingdom of the south, then we understand the relationship of the 11th chapter of the kingdom of the north and south. Lots of skirmishes, because we are dealing with two very strong, fierce type of people. So per the instructions, let those areas of the world take on their positions. There is no way of working otherwise. And very many wrong decisions can be absolutely devastating. The market is showing itself very fragile. As the markets of the world, they are fragile, then they can forget about those contracts. That's why then the kingdom of the north must filter through and then only report to the kingdom of the east. So let's make sure we understand. We've come out of the 1,000 years of deceit, where people could jump around. Oh, this government making deal with the other government. Ah, it didn't work, then goes to the other. Ah, it didn't work, goes to the other. Ah, it didn't work. And to make up for it, they were printing money. After 2009, we've instantly entered the schedule. And we are 4 years behind schedule, in fact. Any kind of a wrong decision can be extremely costly. So then from the instructions, we can safely warn then the kingdom of the east, Mr. Chi, be very cautious what he does with his money. Because if he makes a deal with the south kingdom, it's not going to work. The planned part of it belongs to the kingdom of the north. In this way then makes it a whole lot easier for China, because they can only receive the materials already smeltered, nicely organized. They don't have to breathe junky air every day, because then the kingdom of the north can provide those raw materials already smeltered. So there are many advantages. And then as far as how the kingdom of the north does the work, it's not specified. But we do understand there is a relationship, each with its own role. As we do this, obviously, then China receives the raw materials, but not in form of ores. Receives then the material already smeltered. So then gives chance to other countries then to become part of the market. But then these countries, they can't make deals directly with China anymore. There is a big problem, because lots of the nations, they are making deals on their own, and they are neglecting the schedule from above. We are no longer during the time of the 1,000 years of deceit. We have to scrape ourselves away from the 1,000 years of deceit and update our data, and very fast. The king of Babylon, he thought the instructions of Daniel were a joke. He was insane for 7 years because he was boasting. He had money, he had materials, he had people to do the work, and he mesmerized and he put down the instructions. He got himself in trouble. Israel mocked the instructions, they got themselves in trouble. So let's be smart. Since we have those understandings from the past, let's make sure we understand the instructions and lined up with it. It's for our own benefit. Because the market is not improving. He must take a very tough planner to get the market back in its original responsibilities. Let's read the instructions and become acquainted with it. It's very important. But can be sure of it, any kind of relationship with the kingdom of the East and kingdom of the South, it's not going to work. So prior to the investment, let each understand its role. Kingdom of the East deals only with the kingdom of the North. That's why I have a leader of the BRICS. Then the kingdom of the North deals with the rest of it. How? We don't know. It's not instructed. This means the planner has a wide schedule of making the best choices. But at least there is a directive.